You are about to take a video tour of Seat at the Table, an exhibition about women's equality 100 years after women won the right to vote in the United States. Seat at the Table is presented by Vision 2020, the National Women's Equality Coalition headquartered at Drexel University. The exhibition is hosted by the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts as part of Vision 2020's Women 100, a national celebration of American women. Welcome to Philadelphia, home to Drexel University's Vision 2020 and the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts, where Vision 2020's Seat at the Table is installed. The exhibition commemorates the 100th anniversary of American women's voting rights and answers the question, where are we now, after a century of progress toward economic, political, and social equality for women? Since you can't be here in person, we're going to take you on a virtual tour. Follow 3 students as they explore Seat at the Table. Women have not always had the right to vote in the United States. For the first 144 years of the country's history, only men could vote. Women won the right in 1920, and most women have now been voting for 100 years. This was a landmark victory for gender equality. However, it is essential to note that another 45 years passed before the Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed restrictions that had kept most black people from voting. So, where are we now? Gender equality remains an unfinished business. We will learn from touring this exhibition how unequal men and women still are. Why does it matter? Women and girls represent 1/2 of the population. However, their ideas and concerns are often unheard simply because they occupy far less than half the seats at the table where important decisions are made. The 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution gave women the right to vote in 1920. It says, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." There's a reason this exhibit is called Seat at the Table. Now imagine you're here for a meeting, but there's only one seat at this table for a woman. How do you think a woman would feel attending this meeting? Have you heard of the Fortune 500? Fortune is a business magazine that lists the top 500 corporations in the country. On its first list in 1955, none of the top business leaders, the chief executives, were women. Recently, the average has been 25 women CEOs out of 500. The other 475 are men. That's 5%. You can see what 5% looks like at this conference table. 1 yellow seat out of 20. How well do you think business leadership reflects the ideas and concerns of women? Advocates for women's equality believe leadership must be shared equally. Women and men having a seat at the table in business, government, and everywhere decisions are made that shape society. Before we continue, here's some museum lingo for you. This exhibit design uses lots of seats and tables as infographic furniture. The exhibit pieces are meant for visitors to read and learn from, but also to sit on. Congress was designed to be the voice of the people. It makes laws that affect the lives of all Americans. Around the same time women won the right to vote 100 years ago, women also first won seats in the 2 houses of Congress, the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. As of 2019, Congress has more women than ever. 127 out of 535, or 23.6%. Look at the benches. 1 out of 4 is yellow, representing the fact that women hold about 1/4 of the seats in Congress. That's why the title here is Under-Representation. We already know women and girls are half the population. How well do you think government leadership reflects women's ideas and concerns? Step up to the presidential podium. You probably know that no U.S. presidents have been women as of 2020. But did you know that more than 75 other countries have elected or appointed women as the leader of their government since 1950? President is the highest leadership position in the U.S. government. So far, 44 men have been president. One served twice at two different times. The Declaration of Sentiments, written by women's rights pioneers in 1848, reminds us all men and women are created equal. Do you think Americans will someday elect a woman to serve in this office? Maybe you will be one of the future voters to elect a woman president. More people across different racial, ethnic, and cultural groups are interacting in the workplace. In 30 years, the majority of American women will be women of color: Black, Latina, Asian, American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian. Many will identify as biracial or mixed race. Women of color often face double discrimination: sexism and racism. Discrimination can keep them from attaining top leadership positions. Look at S&P 500 companies, which are among the largest American companies. 21.8%, less than 1/4 of their senior level officials and managers are white women. 4.7% are women of color. The split among Black, Latina, and Asian women is about equal, as each holds less than 2%. Studies have shown that companies with more diverse management teams increase their revenue and profits due to greater innovation. Forbes Business Magazine said this makes sense because diversity means diversity of minds, ideas, and approaches, which allows teams to find a solution that take into account multiple angles to the problem. If you were here, you could sit on this bench shaped like a dollar bill. When we talk about the gender income gap, we are talking about dollars, especially the dollars paid to adults who work at a job to support themselves and any family members who depend on them. Do you know that people are paid differently for doing the same full-time, year-round job? For every dollar a white man makes, a woman doing the same work makes less. How much less varies a lot depending on the race of the woman. Latina women are paid 53 cents compared to men. American Indian and Alaska Native women, 58 cents. Black women, 61 cents. Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander women, 62 cents. White women, 77 cents. And Asian women, 85 cents. Even though women have more academic degrees, men make more money in almost every profession. And jobs typically held by women pay less. For example, child care workers, chiefly women, are paid less than parking lot attendants who are chiefly men. The gender income gap begins as soon as a woman enters the workforce and widens over time. The women's equality activist Lilly Ledbetter said, "Unequal pay hurts women. It hurts their families, and it hurts us all." There was a bicycle craze in the late 1800s. This is one of the reasons women started wearing pants. Bicycles empowered women. They could ride where they wanted, when they wanted. These bikes are about voter participation. Visitors are invited to ride the bikes and be inspired to exercise their right to vote. Each bike represents a different U.S. presidential election from 1920 to 2020. Women first won the right to vote just weeks before the presidential election in 1920. About 8 million, or 15% of women, voted. Winning the right took many years, so most early supporters did not live to experience the victory. In presidential elections from 1972 to 2016, about 2/3, or 2 out of 3, women voted. That means 1 out of 3 women did not exercise her right to vote. The last bike represents 2020, and the election hadn't happened yet when the exhibit was created. What do you think it will take to improve voter turnout? There's a great view of these 18 pie charts looking down from the balconies above. Each tabletop is a chart showing the number of women versus men in 18 different occupations from 2016 to 2019. For example, in government occupations, 18% of state governors are women. Among mayors of the 100 largest U.S. cities, 27% are women. In business, 9% of venture capitalists are women, and of the companies receiving venture capital money, 12% have a woman founder. Some of the tables are related pairs that show more women than men at the worker level and more men than women at the leadership level. In education, women are 74% of the K-12 teachers, but 24% of the school district superintendents. In medicine, women are 88% of the registered nurses, but only 16% of the deans at medical schools. In athletics, women are 49% of the athletes at the Olympic Games, 11% of the accredited coaches. Why do you think women and men are not equally represented at all levels, from workers to leaders? What if you turned 18 and couldn't vote, go to college, or earn a living? What if getting married meant you couldn't sign contracts, divorce an abusive partner, or have custody of your children? This was the situation for women in 1848, which was also the year of the first Women's Rights Convention held at Seneca Falls in New York. This convention kicked off a mass movement for women's rights, including the right to vote, called suffrage. Suffragists lectured, wrote, marched, lobbied, and practiced civil disobedience. They sometimes suffered violent consequences. Black women who were usually excluded by white women organized to advocate for their own rights. Since that time, generations of Americans have worked toward gender equality, and pioneering women have continued to make history in different areas, each contributing to women's progress. These touchscreens introduce 18 pioneering women in 6 different areas: activism, politics, business, STEM, communications, and sports. Some have passed away into history, and some are continuing now to break down barriers for themselves and other women. We hope you'll be inspired by these women and girls. Some may have been your age when they first made their mark. The youngest living women featured are Under Agents of Change Emma Gonzalez, born in 1999. In the STEM category, Sabrina Gonzalez Pasterski, born in 1993. And in sports, Monet Davis from Philadelphia, born in 2001. You can read their stories online at women100.org/seat at the table. After all that you have learned from your virtual visit to the Seat at the Table exhibition, you probably have an opinion about the steps that should be taken to achieve greater equality between women and men. Vision 2020, the National Women's Equality Coalition behind the Seat at the Table exhibition, has identified 4 steps that should be taken. Women and men sharing leadership 50-50. Education inclusive of women's history. Equal pay for equal work. More women voting and in public service. Which one of these would you vote for as the number 1 goal in an effort to achieve gender equality? What will you do to help achieve that goal?